how do we navigate things like cultural trends, current world events, and disagreement in church? Honest Conversations is a deeper dive into some of your important questions that we don't always have time to cover in a Sunday morning service. Ready to dive in? Let's join Andrew and Brooke for today's Honest Conversation.
Welcome to another episode of Honest Conversations with my pastor, and today we are following up on a heartfelt message Andrew preached on Mother's Day, understanding God's incredible design of women and the important reasons why we should stand against anything that threatens or harms womanhood. Again, Lindsay Frazee is in studio with us. She is in fact a woman and a mother.
I am. That is true. Both true statements.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Andrew, you preached a series on God's design for the family that we talked about in the dating episode called Build the Home, and you're writing a book on it still?
Yes, he is.
Question mark?
Yes, he is.
Big question mark.
Okay. How's it going? Slow.
Haven't touched it in a long time.
Okay.
So.
All right. That's okay. How has... Sorry. Sorry. I didn't mean to bring up something that feels like it may be weighing on you. How has your understanding of God's design of women influenced your appreciation for the mothers and women in your life?
Oh, man.
You studied this. I mean, in depth now, I would say. And so studying it more and more, how does that influence then your view of women and motherhood?
I'd say that it makes my love and appreciation of women, for specific women, just like burn hotter.
Yeah.
It's just the best.
Yeah.
I mean, anyways.
Yeah, that's great. Lindsay, how have your views on motherhood shifted throughout the years? You mentioned how old your kids were in the dating episode. Remind us again.
Yeah, so my oldest is 15, 14, 12, and 9.
Okay. And how has your view of motherhood changed now throughout the...
I think that honestly, my views of motherhood have not shifted too much over my life. I think I've always wanted to be a mom, and I've always had a desire to do that. So the Lord really put that in me from a really young age. So, I never had career aspirations. I was like, I'm going to go to college because that's what you do. But again, I got my MRS in college and
gonna go to college to
very
find my mark.
Proud. Anyway, it's been great. But I think I've always held a really high value for motherhood, and I've always seen the significance, and I don't think I realized what a gift that was from the Lord until probably the last 5 to 10 years as I became a mom, and then I saw women navigate some of the tensions of that.
Yeah.
And I won't say I never felt like, what am I doing with my life when it feels like deja vu and I'm changing diapers and I haven't showered in 3 days and, I'm a mess, basically, and I'm like, what in the world am I doing? But I feel like the Lord has always tenderly led me to be like, you are changing the world with these humans. And, people ask all the time, like, who do you want to meet when you get to heaven? And I'm like, I want to meet Billy Graham's mom. I'm like, she had no idea who she was raising, right? But yet she did it unto the Lord, and he changed the world in so many ways, right? And so for me, I just keep that perspective of what I'm doing is incredibly significant, so much so that I actually have no idea how significant it is because I have no idea what these little humans in my life are going to do. And so if I can be a mom of these 4 humans that impact the world for the glory of God, feel really pumped about investing in that.
Yeah. I admire that in you, that you knew that so early on.
Yeah.
I think I was one of, the many women in our generation who was kind of sold this bill of goods that getting married young is silly. Getting pregnant young is very silly. You do you. You focus on you. You focus on your career. You climb the ladder. Motherhood, marriage will come.
Yeah.
Well, it did, but it wasn't until I started really really abandoning the world's goals for me and looking at the face of Jesus when all of a sudden my views of motherhood changed. And it's amazing the correlation there of, oh my gosh, like I'm all of a sudden staring into the face of Jesus and somehow I'm realizing the worth of being a mother is way higher than the worth of me being a news anchor or, whatever else. And it's almost a blinding, I think, of like, shoot, like I didn't realize this. And I listened to a whole lot of wisdom, quote unquote, from the world that led me astray.
Yeah.
Thank God and his grace, everything worked out. But, and I'm thankful for my career. I don't mean to say I'm not. It's just that, man, you got to go into it just understanding the beautiful value of it and having your sights set on that, whether a career is involved or not, like that's it. Like that's really, anyway, I went off on a rabbit trail there, but coming from a different perspective, I admire you for knowing that so early on.
Yeah.
How old were you when you feel like that stuff started happening inside of you?
I was probably 34. Max was 3, probably. Maybe I was 35. And it wasn't until I took some extended time off of work that I had time to sit and be and hear and realize, wait a second, my most valuable thing is here right beside me, and I've been not here, a lot. And so anyway, and it might mean making lifestyle changes to follow that call. And, it's definitely there's logistics there, there's realities, and I'm not trying to make it sound like that's everybody, but for me, my personal experience, it took me stopping to be able to hear and receive.
That's really good.
Yeah, you just don't want to get to the end and then have that epiphany.
Yeah. Was that something that you felt like, how do I want to ask this? Was that like God said something to you and it was like you heard something and you needed to respond to that? Or was that like, no, I stopped and I was spending time with the Lord and it was more from the insides of you?
Yeah.
Yes, it was a specific moment. I was sitting on our deck. This is when I took time off. I was sitting on our deck. I was watching Cole and Max out in our pond. Baby monitor was beside me. Marlo was sleeping. I had my Bible open. And I was filled with, I don't even know how to describe it, the most joy, peace, and love almost like colliding.
Wow.
And I was like overwhelmed in a moment of nothing. And I was like, this is it.
Wow.
This is it. What is right in front of me. And I said, I don't care if we have to move into, a small apartment on the other side of town. I just don't want to give this up.
Wow.
This is where it's at. And, it's just kind of, it was just revelatory for me. And it was nothing specific. The Holy Spirit just met me in that moment and changed things.
It's beautiful.
So,
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. Thanks for asking. Okay, Andrew, I'm going to be honest because I wasn't expecting the message that you delivered on Mother's Day.
Really?
I don't know what I was expecting.
Yeah.
It was a stirring message. It was filled with incredible affirmations to women and mothers. But you were unapologetic in your call to hate the ideas and opinions that stand against women. As you were preparing for the message, did you even have that thought, like, this might be unexpected for some?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Did you?
Oh, yeah. I was like, oh, gosh.
Really?
Yeah.
And what made you take this direction for Mother's Day?
It was just kind of what got stirred up as I started preparing. So, Yeah. I mean, that's the bottom line. I think I was thinking about, okay, Mother's Day's coming up. And I think I said at the beginning, like in the last handful of Mother's Days, I think Laurel taught last one, but then like the two before that, I think I did the two before that. And they were messages more kind of along like the Build the Home series. And then a year or two before that, I had done what essentially became much of the woman message for Build the Home was a couple years earlier, just valuing women and stuff like that. So I was like, oh, I've already kind of done the like, here's what God says about women message thing, and really tried to go after some of the skewed perspectives on some of the stuff in Genesis or just some of the stuff. I've like done a lot of that in the last handful of years. And so I'm like, oh, what should I do for this Mother's Day message, So I think that just made space for, in that space, what maybe got stirred up was just like, well, I've kind of taught on the stuff. Now let's take that next step with all of that in the background or in the foundation, and all of that truth means something and looks like something and matters and is under attack. And that is sad and really screwing up a lot of things and a lot of people. And so it's good to preach the gospel and say, well, hey, here's the good news, in the midst of all of this other stuff. Let's apply what we've been learning and kind of round out even more what it means to believe this stuff.
Lindsay, was it unexpected for you? You've been under Andy's teaching longer than I have.
I was in
you were
kids
Okay.
when he preached.
Okay.
But I will say, I don't know, I was not unexpected wasn't the word for me. I would say it wasn't a traditional, what people would, say is a traditional Mother's Day. But
I was thinking this is not, people do not come to church on Mother's Day for this sermon I'm about to give.
Yes. But what I will say is maybe because I do know him, but I don't think so. I think what I took from that was I felt very loved, because I think in so many ways we can say, oh, I hate sin in so many different contexts, but when it comes to the things that he addressed, it somehow becomes offensive that we hate those things. And I'm like, why is that offensive that we hate the things that are attacking identity in the Lord? So I knew, and I felt that. I felt his heart in that. I felt the passion in protecting that. And so I felt really loved as a woman.
Andrew, you quoted G.K. Chesterton when you said, to love a thing without wishing to fight for it is not love at all. It is lust. That was powerful.
Yeah.
That's powerful. And I think what I realized was my aversion to the word hate. For those who hadn't listened to the message, Andrew talked about, why we love women and God's design for women, and then said, that's why we hate blank. That's why we, hate this.
Because we love women, we hate things that hate women.
Yes.
That's good. Because we love women, we hate things that hate women. And the word hate, I just found it almost stung at times as you were saying it. And I wondered why. And I realized that I had a hard time distinguishing hatred of ideas and hatred of people. And I think the world has slowly made us feel like they're one and the same.
Yes.
Would you agree to that?
100%.
So maybe that's proof, right? That we need to get a little bit more comfortable standing against or hating things that are contrary to God. It's a slow moral decline lined with good intentions. Do you see that in the congregation, in maybe the Christian church as a whole, kind of that slow, almost like timid to hate things because we feel like we're hating people? And then what's the end result of that if we get too scared of being...
Wow.
Does that make sense?
It makes so much sense. And my eyes are getting big because you're hitting on like a lot. That's massive. But I agree that it's hard to distinguish people from ideas.
Yes.
But we have to. Mm-hmm. So there's that. Mm-hmm. I mean, when we don't distinguish people from ideas, then we love bad ideas under the guise of loving people.
Right.
And it's not loving to people to love bad things. Mm-hmm. So we have to grow up and press in to be mature enough to distinguish between ideas and between ideas and people, and we have to grow up and mature enough to then love people and hate ungodly ideas. Mm-hmm. And if we don't, we end up where we are right now.
Mm-hmm. Which is where?
Which is in that confusion. I mean, there is just so much weakness and passivity and apathy and fog and compromise in like our culture. And I'll just say I, who will say these things and believes these things, will then get bludgeoned with, well, there's no difference between the two. Or I don't feel like you can distinguish between the two. Or it's hard for me to distinguish the two as I listen to you say that the things are different. And it's like, sorry, like I'm not going to bend to your discomfort with the truth. And I'm not going to bend to your inability to love people and hate ungodly things. I'm going to love people and hate ungodly things. Mm-hmm. And I can't not do that just because it makes you uncomfortable or something like that. So that is like a lot of pressure that I know. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've talked to y'all feel that, and lots of people feel that pressure. Like, I can't say this because it's going to be taken wrong.
Yeah.
And I had somebody ask me recently, the question was, I think, do you feel a responsibility for like how people take some of what you say? Mm-hmm. We might have even been talking about this message. No, I think we were talking about something else similar. But anyways, and I've been thinking a lot about that over the last few years. And my answer is no. Yeah. I don't. I don't feel a responsibility for how somebody takes what I say. I feel a great responsibility to be loving and be as accurate as I can and to have a tame tongue. Mm-hmm. But that's not the same as thinking something. I will think something different or say something different or not say the truth because I don't know if somebody will take my words or will put words in my mouth.
Yeah.
Because it's, what people will say is like, well, when you say that, some people will run with this other idea. Mm-hmm. I'm like, that's not my responsibility. Mm-hmm. If you want to take something I say and think that, and pretend like I said something else, like, I'm not responsible for that. Yeah. I'm responsible for what I actually say in the heart that I actually say it with. Mm-hmm. So I can't live in that impossible ambiguity of like, does everybody listening to me right now fully understand everything it is that I'm exactly saying, or are they going to take it, even if they do understand it, and twist it to make it sound like something that's sort of similar but is actually completely it's like, whatever. You live your life, I'm going to live mine. I'm loving as best I know how, and it's not perfect, but like, I'm doing the best I can. And like, my life's not that long, so I got to do this. you know, and so God have mercy on me, type of a thing. So I don't know how we got down that road. But
did you get people who talked to you about that message? Or not really?
I got a ton of good feedback. I did get this similar question that you're asking from a handful of people of like, why did you have to say hate so much? Mm-hmm. That kind of thing. But it was not there. Nobody really pressed me on it. Like really, most of the feedback I got was like what Lindsay said. It was like, thank you for saying that. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't have said hate so much, or why did you have to say hate so much? But it's true. Like, okay, like it's true, or I felt loved, or I feel celebrated, like all of those sorts of things.
What is it about hate? Like, what is it about the word
that makes our inside squirm?
That makes us squirm a little bit. What do you think?
I think it's just aggressive. It just feels very like, Like, versus
true.
being like, I would prefer that didn't happen. Can we
Heather's
please?
way of saying
you know?
she hates something is, it's not super my favorite.
Right. It's like we just have different ways of saying, like, could we try this? It's like we
Right.
give alternatives and we like, and I think, but I think to that point, it's like God hates sin.
Yeah.
And he says that. And so it is the heart with which God feels about these things. He's not like, I just prefer that you wouldn't think that, or I prefer that you don't do X, Y, and Z. Like, it's not a great idea. Or I super don't like that. Like, can we talk about that? It's like, no, I hate that because I love you so much and I see what that does to you and I hate that. And to me, I'm like, wow, I love, like, that feels so protective to me. And that feels the most loving thing in the entire world, is to be like, you love me so much that you actually hate what is harming me.
What do you say to people who say, well, Jesus he was so loving that, like, he didn't tell the woman at the well, I hate what you've done. Or do you think Jesus exhibited that kind of boldness? I think of Paul. I'm like, I can't imagine that Paul, didn't come with some fire about things that he hated.
Right.
What do you say to people who are like, but Jesus was loving?
You're right. He was loving, and to love a thing and not wish to fight for it isn't love. It's lust.
Yeah.
And read the rest of the Gospels too. So that is true that he didn't tell the woman at the well that he hated what she was doing, but go check what he told some other people too. So
He flipped some tables.
He like flipped some tables, told them they were all broods of vipers, like cursed them, told them they were terrible, told them they should get millstones wrapped around their necks and thrown to the bottom of the sea. Things like that too. So just saying, like, there's that. And Proverbs 8 says that the fear of God is the hatred of evil. And, so like and we've talked about before the exercise of reading the Bible in a month, or in 6 months or whatever, but like getting through it kind of in the biggest chunks possible. God is very clear about everything that matters in life. And he doesn't feel bad at all about saying what is true. And he is loving and kind, but it's not like always nice to hear what he has to say. Like, he's not always like nice, like, no, it's fine. Like, when it's not fine, he doesn't tell you it's fine, And so, to the simple question of like, why'd you have to say hate so much, is because it's true. I hate those things. I don't dislike them or not prefer them. I hate them. And I believe that God hates them too.
Culture is downstream from cult. And Andrew, you called out a lot of things, and this is what we've been talking about, everything from adultery and feminism to abortion and transgenderism. After hearing, the extensive list, it made me wonder, do you think women and mothers specifically are being targeted by the enemy?
Yeah. God's being targeted by the enemy. So his people are being targeted by the enemy. Men are being targeted by the enemy. Women are being targeted. Children are being targeted.
Yeah.
So yes.
But not more so than men, per se. I just think of everyone has their individual challenges and fights, but it just kind of struck me. I was like, man, this is a lot, and it does seem to be.
Well, those things can only attack women when men have become weak.
Do you get a sense, Lindsay, that there's a specific kind of agenda against women, or godly?
Yeah. I think that there is a pointedness on identity. So I think that's really true. And so if you want to take that to the form of man and woman, to, kind of to Andrew's point, it's like when the lines become so skewed that we can't clearly define man and woman, then I think, we're getting really pointed.
To your point, Andrew, what role do men play in supporting and protecting womanhood and motherhood?
Yeah, that is the role, is protect it.
Okay.
And that's why I say these things can only attack women when men are weak. So that goes into, all the masculinity stuff on kind of the build the home side of things would be the lie of toxic masculinity is that it exists. Toxic masculinity isn't toxic masculinity. It's just sin. It's not a toxic version of a good thing. Like I've said, it's like you don't say like sin isn't toxic righteousness or something. It's like, no, it's just sin. It's a whole other thing. So toxic masculinity is not a version of masculinity. It's just the 7 deadly sins. So masculinity looks like the capital virtues, for example. And men, individual men in a society of virtuous men, don't let this stuff attack women.
Lindsay, how can we instill a strong sense of godly womanhood in the next generation? You do such a great job of walking your own daughters into this.
Yeah. I think it is celebrating women in how we were created. So in all the forms, right? I love Andrew put language on it in the Build the Home series of like women are made to nurture. And I think that framework like breaks through so many caveats of being a woman. And so regardless of your role or title or what you're doing in life, like women are made to nurture and we do that. And that's incredibly significant and powerful and influential. And it is something that I want to celebrate in my daughters. And I want them to know, like, hey, when you walk into a room, what you bring into that room, just in and of yourself, matters. It matters to the people around you. It matters to the world around you. And you bring in the nurture of God, the help of God into a room. And that's amazing.
And that kind of brings us full circle back to, what we started talking about. And my experience specifically, it's like if I had that as the end goal, right?
Yeah.
This is my identity, to nurture. It's not X, Y, Z.
Yes.
It's not career. It's not this label.
Yes.
It's not saying careers are wrong.
Totally.
It's just saying that that's where your focus needs to be set as far as your identity goes. And so easy for all of us to fall into identities with what we do, more than who we are.
Yes.
And so that's a really beautiful goal and bullseye.
Yeah. And just to kind of point on that a little bit more, to maybe try to tease out what I know you're both saying.
Yeah.
For the sake of kind of clarity for maybe some people listening, is like, it doesn't only mean nurture babies.
Yes.
I mean, that is like the biggest thing. I mean, in general, like men can't have babies, so that's like that's a female thing to do.
Right.
But when you talk about, it's not career. The nurturing thing is nurture the things of God.
Yes.
Whatever you're doing, wherever you are, whatever room you walk into, whatever age you're at, whatever life stage you're in, whatever relational status you're in, the inherently anointed thing about women, which we call femininity, is to nurture. You have a power, an anointing to nurture the things of God for the glory of God.
Yes.
So that is your purpose in life as a woman.
Yes.
And then however your purpose works out as an individual who is also a woman, that woman anointing is going to be a part of it. And engaging with that and participating in that anointing is going to be a key element of you finding fulfillment in whatever the outworking of the specific thing you're doing is.
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, guys. Thank you for joining us. We will be back with another episode soon.
That's all for today's Honest Conversation.